we're interested in how people pray, how everyone prays. But if I could ask one person to teach me to pray, it would be the incomparable Mary Magdalene, the woman whose power, whose essence, whose divinity, whose goddess self is so strong that even after 2,000 years of the patriarchal element of Christianity, tearing her out of the story, silencing her, burying her gospels, because that is completely unacceptable, to consider that Jesus had a wife, a devoted apostle, a teacher possibly, someone who actually understood and embodied what he was teaching. There is no other person on earth like Mary Magdalene. And she is alive right now, isn't she? She's talking to us. I know so many people who she yells at them, arrives in their dreams, pops out of pages. And I responded myself by creating a prayer intensive, praying with and as Mary Magdalene with Megan Dunn. So during that intensive, you know what happened? All of us were telling one another, oh, you like this book, listen to this, watch this, do this. And somebody said, you know, you might be interested in the Passion of Mary Magdalene, part of a series called the Maeve Chronicles. And I knew nothing about this book or this author, Elizabeth Cunningham. But if somebody I love and trust says, you might be interested in this book, then I might be interested in that book. So, okay, there's 4 books in the series. And it's sort of the good news and the bad news. The good news is they are incredible. And you meet a Mary Magdalene that you've never met before. She's Celtic. Her name is Maeve. She was raised by 8 warrior, weather, Celtic goddess witches. And so the good news is you meet Maeve, you meet Jesus, you hear their story, you meet their daughter Sarah in a whole new way. And Elizabeth Cunningham fills in blanks. We don't know how this happened or what they were doing here. And she fills in all the blanks, and suddenly you see this full Steven Spielberg movie version of Mary Magdalene and her lover, her sweetheart, Jesus of Nazareth. So that's the good news. The bad news is you can't stop reading them. I'm telling you, this is a drug. This is a drug. And I naively started reading, and I told Elizabeth that she probably could hear me or feel me cursing her out, because at 2:00 in the morning, I'd be going, Elizabeth, I have got to go to sleep, but I'm just going to read one more chapter. So you know who I want to introduce to you and selfishly have a conversation with myself on praying at the speed of love is Elizabeth Cunningham. For 20 years, she listened to the voice of Mary Magdalene. For 20 years are in these books. Massive amount of research, but mostly it was Maeve waking her up and yelling at her and telling her what to do. Well, any writer knows this. We know this, that the character or the impetus of the book that wants to be written is going to be written. You just have to put your hands in service to the book that wants to be written. Well, Mary Magdalene is kind pushy about the book that, well, she wanted to have written. And Elizabeth put herself in service to it for 20 years. So I am out of my chair, excited to have a conversation with Elizabeth Cunningham. Because not only is she the author of these books, and I feel like she knows something about Mary Magdalene that the rest of us do not, but from the very first thing I read about her, let me see if I can find it for you. This book was her first one, The Passion of Mary Magdalene. It was an incredible success and led the way to all four. Somewhere in the bios, I'm not finding it to read it to you, so I'm just going to tell it to you from memory. But I just kind of go, what? Elizabeth Cunningham is the 9th generation of Episcopalian priests. Now, she herself is an ordained interfaith minister, not an Episcopalian priest, but 9 men going back. I mean, what are you at? We got to be at Henry VIII. 9? What? So, the woman knew the Bible stories, right? But there is Maeve waking her up and demanding that a Celtic story, a different story, a much more wild, sensual, goddess-worshiping, ecstatic, funny. Oh my God, it's so funny. At the same time that you are also reading not just a horrible story in the sense that it's the story of Jesus as we hear it in the Gospels, which is not a pretty story, but it's also an incredible eye-opener to the political situation. Rome was the ultimate patriarchy, abusing people of color, women. Sound familiar? And so your eye gets opened to the political situation in which Mary Magdalene, Maeve, and Jesus lived. It's the background to the Bible stories. And suddenly the Bible stories make a heck of a lot more sense if you understand Rome, the things Rome did, the way it abused people. And of course, we care about 2 of these people, Mary Magdalene and Jesus, the son of Mary. So you're going to be with me, right? I don't know what's going to happen because I get the feeling Elizabeth Cunningham is quite the character. So we are live tomorrow, Thursday, July 25th. And I trust you're subscribing on iTunes, on Stitcher, on Google Play, on I don't know how many other places can you get a podcast. Any place you can get a podcast, you can get Praying at the Speed of Love. And so there it is in your phone, letting you know that there's a new episode. But I specifically created this show to give you so much more than the conversation, as fabulous as the conversations have been. This is episode 11. I have to stop and think. I think it's episode 11. Because when you come to my website, Janet Conner, and click on the podcast, you get, not only can you listen, if you haven't heard it, to the whole show, but you get an introduction to the guest, a link, get to know Elizabeth, a little bit about her, a link to her website, and then there's this blue box of things that you can do to begin to embody what you heard her talking about. And then the best part of all, you click on the prayer bags, right? And there's 2 prayer bags. One is the prologue, if you haven't read it, to the Passion of Mary Magdalene. So line up for your hit of cocaine, because this is a drug. I'm telling you, you start this book and you're doomed. And the other bag, there is music, because Elizabeth Cunningham sings Maeve's songs. You cannot have more fun than this. Live tomorrow at janetconner.com. Come and meet me, Elizabeth Cunningham, but I think Maeve's going to be in the